Hey guys, this is capital M asterisk RDERY apostrophe S reads season 1, episode 9. Um Recap, I had started the difference in my book. This is it was autobiographical originally when I wrote it. I wrote this before I found out the truth of why I have my cerebral palsy. The original story was I was told my mom tripped over one of my brother Matt's toys and that she fell and it caused like oxygen to go in my brain, hence why I was born with my disability. That's not the truth. I didn't find that out until after I had written this. And my father told me to my face when I was 18 that he pushed my mother down in hopes that she'd miscarry me. And so while I believed when I wrote this was the truth, it was not. And I couldn't go back and rewrite this. Not then. I definitely could now, but I couldn't then. When I got this published, it was too fresh of a wound. Now, I plan on rewriting this book, so I will definitely. This will be one of the things I very much do an overhaul over. So I'm starting over from the beginning. The difference. It was. Oh, and there's probably gonna be running commentary for this one. It was 1990. It was the year that we ushered in a new decade. It was 1990. It was the year that we ushered in a new decade with new experiences in preparation for a new election. But mainly it was the year I turned 3 years old. It was the year when everything changed. By this time, I suspect my readers are wondering what kind of horrible or catastrophic thing could possibly have happened to a 3-year-old. I promise in my eyes it was a blessing. But was it? Okay. It was a renaissance that would later cause an impact on not only me, but many others. It was then that my parents not only noticed the difference in me, but by this time I wasn't walking, talking, or able to do the things the way my brother Matt did when he was my age. My parents began to worry. They took me to doctors who had tests run on me, who later receiving the test results still couldn't place why I was different and what was causing this. I say my parents, my mom. Gary had very little to do with me when I was a kid or teenager or an adult before he passed away. My mom pretty much raised me on her own. They took me to 3 doctors. Each one didn't know. Actually, they took me to 3 doctors. Pardon me. They took me to 3 doctors before they realized what was wrong with me. Those 3 doctors had no clue. One of them was a Russian doctor who strapped me down to a table and flashed strobe lights in my face thinking I had epilepsy. I did not, but even to this day, I can't see strobe lights without feeling like I need to vomit. And so yeah, I was 3. They strapped me down to a table and flashed lights in my face. Obviously, I did not have epilepsy, and I definitely didn't have polio, which I reference in the next segment. So yes, it was fun being me. They tested me for they tested me for everything. One day it was epilepsy, the next polio. Then one day a woman at the post office in West Memphis noticed my leg and asked if it was broken. When she realized it was not broken, she referred me to the hospital that I would eventually go to for 15 years. The Shriners Children's Hospital in St. Louis, Missouri not only changed my life, but changed my outlook on everything. They are phenomenal people, by the way. Very, 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 very good people there. They were so wonderful. They truly were. Like yes, the story about me at the post office. I learned to walk before I could crawl. My mom said I couldn't hold myself up. I army crawled everywhere. And there's a video I posted not that long ago of me jumping up and down singing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If you go back for a few videos, you'll see it. You could probably tell that something is wrong by looking at the video because I'm barely moving my left arm. I was so scared to go to St. Louis because I was afraid that they would tell me I was dying or something. I packed all my stuffed animals in the car and we were on our way. The trip there was exciting, yet I was full of anxiety. My mom, being the great woman she is, started naming everything she saw to amuse me to take away my fears. Boris the Rock and Sally the Tree were the only thing on my mind before I finally drifted asleep for the remainder of the trip. I always fell asleep on the way to St. Louis. Always. always and never fails because it's about a 4-hour drive, or at least it was, you know, when I was growing up where I grew up. It was about a 4-hour drive back and forth, so about an 8-hour round trip. And yeah, uh, at least 90% of that trip, I'm not exaggerating, like 90% of that trip, they were doing construction on that interstate and that segment of interstate. And I think they are still, yes, they are still doing construction on it because when me, my mom, and my sister went to St. Charles this past Christmas for our Christmas trip, there's construction. So yes, that has never let up. Um, when I got there, I noticed that there were so many kids like me. It was one of the first experiences I had where kids were like me because I was one of the only ones. um, and I wanted to be friends with all of them. I remember the coolest thing about the hospital was that they had their own castle. They did. It was cool. And the castle was my world, and I was a princess in that world. I would play inside that castle until I was 13 years old. Correction, I could still fit in that castle till I was 18, to be honest. I'm short. That was the year I no longer could masquerade as an 8-year-old. Fair. Um, then when I went in to meet my doctor, I became scared again and I began to cry. My doctor, who was the head surgeon at the hospital, was an old bat of a doctor that could argue with. Still the case. I mean, obviously he's probably retired right now, but as much as you wanted to argue, it wouldn't matter because you still would be wrong. He did all these exercises with me and he realized I had cerebral palsy. He explained to my mother the effects of cerebral palsy and he in turn asked her if anything happened that could have caused this. She told him that when I was pregnant with me, she fell. Um, and when that happened, oxygen went to my brain and it caused some of my nerves not to develop properly and fully. He told my mother that physically I would be different, but mentally I was lucky because most of the cases of cerebral palsy, the person is affected mentally, which is true. I was 3 when I had my very first surgery and it was on my left leg. I was in a wheelchair for a while, but after I had my cast removed, I was able to walk much better. My next visit, they realized the half-inch difference between my leg lengths, so they issued me with a set of orthotic braces like the ones seen in the movie Forrest Gump. I hated it because they were so uncomfortable. Yes, they were. The minute I was told I would never have to wear those again, I decided in that moment they would be the new chew toy for my dog. They were. Growing up wasn't easy for me because I wanted to be able to do things like my big brothers. Big brothers. I talk about Matt, but I have 3 older brothers, Sean, Aaron, and Matt. But Matt was the one I grew up with. Sean and Aaron are 16 and 17 years older than I am. Like my big brothers, such as climbing and things that required a lot of strength and mobility in my legs. My left leg, I couldn't climb a tree. Still can't. My left arm was affected also because I couldn't physically use it like I could my right arm. So they decided when I was 8, I would have my first surgery on my arm. I missed a lot of school because of that surgery. I had to stay in St. Louis, so I had to go to school in the classroom in the hospital. It was a great experience for me because I made new friends who were like me, and for once in my life, I didn't feel alone. I learned how to do things differently, like writing, and I learned how to do mostly everything with my dominant arm, which was my right. Still is. After my first surgery, I was an unstoppable force. I ran, I played, I did everything I could, and I tried to do everything that all the kids did at my age. The only thing I had problems with were things I had to have 2 good hands, such as tying my shoes, but I always made up for it by learning how to do something else like fishing and playing baseball. I took pride in being the first Pee Wee one-armed catcher and rector, yeah. When I was 11, I was called crippled for the first time. I remember it hurt my feelings so bad. I felt helpless. I knew it wasn't my fault. I was different, but that was the first and sadly not the only time I wish I was like everyone else. My mom, I remember, sat me down and told me that I was special, that God made me unique for a reason, and that I was going to make an impact. I was going to change how someone felt about people who were disabled, and I was going to pave the way for the future. Being 11 and hearing that, I knew that I had to do what was right. From then on, when people called me foul and judgmental names, I turned my cheek. There's a reason why my nickname is capital M asterisk RDERY. Well, I'm still in the middle of this. I didn't get very far, but I will do another video reading the next part of it. So sorry. We're probably only like 70. We'll just say 76%. Thanks guys for watching. Bye.